the definitions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only power it has is if we apply those definitions to bringing them into our mind and really gaining a deep understanding of what is, what are the five all-accompaniment. So we need to study. It's a study, just like any sutra or any book that we look at. The other thing too is there is no samsara out there. There is no collective mind out there. We're always thinking outside. It's external. We're never looking. We don't know how to look at our own mind that knows these things. So we come up with a definition of reality that is external to us every time. And so there is no samsara out there. There's nothing. Samsara, you have your own samsara. What is appearing to your mind is your own samsara. What will appear to your mind is your own emptiness. So it's almost, Kathy, it's almost impossible to conceive. We're so used to looking at reality as external to us. We talk about the mind, but even when we look at the mind as something external to us, like a form of knowledge or an object of knowledge, so we just have to kind of overcome and see through certain beliefs that we've held forever. And one of the beliefs is that everything that we see and perceive truly exists. We might hear that it doesn't, but that's an intellectually formed illusion, because deep down the innate ignorance is saying that this is all true. This is what we have to overcome. We have to be able to see true existence, inherent existence. They're synonyms. It goes so deep, that delusion in our mind, that we have to realize that we have to be able to use our mind, understand our mind, because that is not external to our mind. And when you talk about Buddha nature, if you studied the mind at all, if you read definitions, if you've seen anything, you'll see that we have three levels of mind. And the gross level of mind and the subtle level of mind are what the gross level of mind, conceptions and sense awarenesses, is where we operate. We don't know anything different until we kind of go into a dream mind, which is subtle. But all those appearances to that mind are also false, because they completely disappear by the time we wake up. So these are appearing to our mind. The world that appears to your mind is not the same world that appears to my mind. And if I want my world to become better, I have to change my mind, because it's not what appears to me is not separate from my mind. That is a profound topic, but it's an area that we have to move into if we want to gain any spiritual development, any spiritual realizations. If we want to gain the experience of the happiness that is talked about in the books, if we want to take the essence of our human life, and become an enlightened being. Enlightened being means waking up from this ignorance. So we have to acknowledge that we are ignorant. We're stupid. We don't know anything in relation to spiritual development. We know a bunch of stuff intellectually, but in terms of how to understand the situation we're in and get out of it, that was the function, that's the purpose of Buddha.
It's really...
So I'm on a rant.
No, I totally, I understand, and I really appreciate what you're saying, I mean, I don't know who's going to be watching the video or how they will react, but these things, it's not easy for people, because, I mean, I was with Kadampa for a good half a year to a year, just with Kadampa Sangha and reading Kadampa books, and I really loved it, and then I went home and it was like a totally different story, and there was such a wide gap between what I was doing here and what it seems like the rest of the world was doing and how they perceive, and I literally couldn't really step down or step across our teachings to them in a way that they would understand. I mean, I could say it's related to the mind and what have you, and but there seems to be such a wide gap in definition, language. There had to be so many steps to fill in to even get there, you know? And I sort of realized, like, I keep on mentioning, like, recently I went back to China. My family, my mom and dad took me, and I went, and it's completely secular state, and they don't want to hear about Buddhism. I mean, the people I was with were not so interested. But I think there's still, I could see Buddha nature in the behavior, right? You know, there's just general common sense love in the family and all this, you know, but if you get into more complicated discussions of things that are a projection of our own mind, it's hard for people, you know. But I think that's the point, is that we need to get these concepts out there so that more and more people are aware what is going on is really a state of projection of their own minds. And although things appear separate, they're not separate. But what can a person do with that? You know, so if I understand that, what can I do? Like, for example, say I was in China, I'm in my room, I'm trying to meditate, there's noise a lot, I couldn't meditate, and I could say to myself, this is not external to my mind, okay, but I'm trying to meditate, what can I do with this definition? I felt like I couldn't do anything about it, so okay, so I put in my earplugs, so that's fine, but I still realize that the condition I'm in seems quite separate from where I ideally want to be. So then later, recently, I never used to be into like social activism or anything. I just thought, well, I just do my own spiritual practice, improve myself, you know, try to understand the mind and all of this. But recently I started watching some of the videos and work of my ex-roommate, who was at the Harvard Divinity School, and then she went on later to make like a documentary that showed the persecution of her community. She's like Indian Sikh girl, and after 9/11 there was a lot of persecution in her community, and then she took that very far, and then recently she got to make speech, you know, at the Stanford commencement, and also at White House and Pentagon, and her message was kind of the same, which is just that, not so much talking about the mind, but that we're in a collective sphere wholeness, and that we need to understand things as a whole and not just like individual bits and pieces, and that when we talk about the mind, we're in the bigger mind, that there's a mind participation. I'm using my own language to try to link our teaching with what the dialogue is in the world, you know, that there's this interdependence going on among different bits and pieces of the social ecosystem, and that this bigger collective mind, I know you said there is no collective mind, but I think I read in Ocean Vector, they said mind creates world, and because of the collective karma of the beings in this world, we've created this world, so we're sharing in this like mind stream, and individually we have our own mind, but as a social species, the mind of the social species is projecting out in observable conditions that appear as such, that the individual beings somehow seem to not realize that they're in this collective mind stream. And I think it's all these things that kind of made me realize, like, part of healing my own mind also means actively participating in sharing my mind with others and helping others' minds to improve and helping my own minds to improve and raising the overall frequency of this like larger mind that we're in. And then my land can be really pure, because when I was living in Kadampa Center, it felt very sheltered and nice, like we're in a really nice environment. But then when I go out, it's often really bad because it's noisy and people are fighting and violence, and you know, how can I see that as being pure? It's not pure. I mean, I could say it's empty by nature, but it's still a bad dream. And since we're practicing bodhicitta, how do I cultivate my mind in order to change this temporary situation I'm in, so that so that the projection of that situation can be just as beautiful as the Kadampa temple. And that requires that I expend my personal mind and action into the social actions of others and take more of an active role. So that's, that's kind of how I'm thinking about this whole mind thing, Okay.
We don't have to continue the video if you don't.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Or we can stop whenever you want. The teaching of Buddhism is you change your mind, right?
Your world will change.
Yeah.
So everything that you just talked about, the problems within it,
right?
Everything,
right?
Change your understand and learn how to change your mind, and your world will change. The world you just described, the solutions and the aspirations and what to do, where to go, how to do it. Change your mind.
Yeah.
Learn how to change your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean just learn about your mind. Learn how to change your mind.
Change it. Yeah.
Okay. So I saw you the other day in Quick Path.
Yeah.
What is that about? What is tantric meditation about for you? What is actually going on there?
Right.
What do you feel you are accomplishing?
Right.
What are your wishes? Where are you going? What's the purpose? What's the motivation to do that practice?
Right.
What's going on?
Right.
What's going on? And that is social activism at its height.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're doing is you're transforming your contaminated body into a pure body of a deity.
Yeah.
A pure body and mind, arising out of the actual ultimate nature of phenomena, emptiness of inherent existence.
Yeah.
Everything that you've described does not, from the point of view of ultimate truth, it's not there. It's a hallucination.
Yeah.
It's a total hallucination. That's for all of us. That's the situation we're all in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're in a Dharma center, or it doesn't matter if you're out there in the world. People are people.
Yeah.
We're experiencing this hallucination that is horrific.
Yeah.
And it manifests in a million ways in relation to creating suffering.
Yeah.
It can be in a Dharma center, again, it could be in the world.
Yeah.
Every individual person is experiencing this hallucination of self-grasping ignorance, perceiving everything that appears to them in a mistaken way. That's the reality.
Yeah.
That's our reality. That's the reality of every living being who hasn't become an enlightened being.
Yeah.
That is the reality.
Yeah.
So if we learn how to change our mind, if we learn to see that experience of our samsara, what you described, you're describing what you perceive and what you think as being out there.
Right.
That is your samsara.
Yeah.
That's not samsara. That is your samsara.
So you don't perceive that?
No.
So you don't perceive when you go out in the world?
No.
There's a problem. You don't perceive that?
I want to talk about it from the point of view of training.
Okay.
You've taken Highest Yoga Tantra Empowerment.
Yeah.
You have studied generation stage.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the practices of completion stage.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the practices of method.
Yeah.
Of sutra meditations, of lum, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So in tantric meditation, what are you actually doing?
You're asking me now?
Yes, I'll ask you now.
Well, basically in the generation stage, I just basically self-generate as a deity. So for me, it's Vajrayogini. So I just impute myself as Vajrayogini. And then we have the three bringings. One is dissolving the ordinary body into ordinary body and mind into the state of bliss and emptiness. And then from that state, then we're reborn into the second stage as just a flicker of light, And then so that would be coming into the emanation, the enjoyment body, and then the last stage is that light essentially takes the form of a human, because we want to be of service to the human world. So then that human is in the form of Venerable Vajrayogini. So
Vajrayogini is not a human being. Vajrayogini is a deity.
Right.
He's an enlightened being, not a human being.
Right, like I was thinking about the picture of the body.
But the emanation body of light, it's not a human being.
Right.
It's an uncontaminated body of mind, of the emanation body.
Right, it's an uncontaminated emanation body of mind. So, I mean, I obviously don't feel like that enabled like all the time, even though I do it, and I'm sure hopefully someday I will really feel like, you know, this body that I'm in is like just...
Okay, so let me just ask you, what is the meaning of all that? What is the meaning of bringing, say, death into the path of the truth body? Or what is the meaning of the three paintings? What is actually going on there? What is your aspiration? What is your intention in engaging in these practices? What do you think they're doing? What do you think you're accomplishing by doing them? The purpose of them?
Well, I think the purpose of them is for my mind to dissociate identification with the ordinary self, and then to learn to identify with a deity self, right? And then...
And so what we're doing is we're transforming ordinary appearance and conception into the spiritual path to enlightenment. So we're transforming what is divine pride and clear appearance. What does clear appearance mean? It means now all of a sudden when you generate as Vajrayogini, your body and mind arise and your environment arise fully and all at once. So we have the experience of this whole new world arising fully and all at once. Our self is a deity and our environment is a pure land. Now that experience, that method,
right.
When we pop out of the womb, our world appears to us fully and all at once, and we have a sense of I.
Right.
I mean, you know, our mother's womb. Being born as a human being, being born into this world, our whole world appears. Okay, when we die, we're going to die.
Right.
Subjectively, our whole world disappears.
Right.
It disappears.
Right.
So what does that mean? It's not going to, you die, the world that appeared to you completely ceases. Completely. Never to be seen again.
Right.
It doesn't disappear for me. We need to think of death from the point of view of the dying, not the living.
Right.
So what is this world
Right.
after it disappears? What is it? It's simply appearance to mind.
Right.
And this appearance to mind, through our whole life, has appeared to be inherently existent. And we've clumped around in it, creating a huge mess that will just transfer into our next life. Now, what do we need to work on? The mind. Because that's what goes from life to life. And we begin to work on the mind by understanding the ultimate nature of phenomena as not existing in the way we've thought it has, and then we generate a completely whole new set of aggregates. And if you when I said about like Vajrayogini, generation stage being the highest type of social action you could ever participate in, because you are generating yourself as a pure being, living in a pure environment. So you're going to relate to everything. You're going to see. It's not like you do that and you leave this other world back here to go back to. So that's the training, is to continually to understand the meaning, to really get at the meaning, and to get at the experience of being Vajrayogini, being in Vajrayogini's pure land. The only way that we can do that is to understand emptiness, because out of that emptiness we arise. But if we don't get that emptiness or a taste of it, we're still stuck in the world that we normally see and perceive.
Right.
So that's a method.
Yeah. I understand that, and I think like when you were saying it, I think I'm realizing, you know, as in the example, for example, if somebody went out into the world and say they self-generated and you know.
No, talk about you. Talk about what you do. I mean,
Okay, sorry.
I mean, I'm sorry, not.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I don't mean to be kind of forceful like
No,
that,
it's
but I
okay.
mean, you know, just not to just say, well, if somebody did this, but this is not about somebody else.
Right.
This is about your experience.
Right, and I am, you know,
I'm
I,
tough.
oh,
I'm sorry.
no. I'm really like I appreciate these conversations because it gets to the edge of the envelope. You know, we're expanding our horizon of understanding of things, and if we just stay with the definitions and in a really nice environment where everybody agrees on a certain set of teaching, it's not so challenging. You know, but if we're in the world when nobody gets this, it is more challenging. So I think like okay, so
Yeah. I mean, I lived my whole life practicing Buddhism, working, raising a family, not in temples, and I've been able to practice. And it's all about having the intention.
yeah.
And it's anyway. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
but
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. You know,
Yeah.
that we just. I mean, again, you know, it helps to know that if I'm out there working in the world,
Right.
I would practice like I was a building contractor.
Right.
I'd work on home.
Yeah.
I'd work for a client, and before I would go to work with the client, I'd say, you know, what's most important here?
Yeah.
You know, we have this whole is your happiness.
Yeah.
You know? And to try to bring these principles into my life, to acquaint myself with virtue, as opposed to non-virtue.
Yeah, and I think I'm also accepting, you know, that in Highest Yoga Tantra, we have purifying migrator practice, right, where we emanate light to all living beings, and then instantly, you know, they turn into the aspect of Venerable Vajrayogini, and it seems like, well, such a quick quantum technology, you know, and I totally actually believe, at my heart, I completely believe every single thought is real, and every single thought has its own power, and I believe when we do that, this is actually somewhere in the quantum space, this is depositing credits and making it happen. You know, it's happening. It just seems like when you come into this physical ordinary world, you go out and it seems like they haven't really been purified yet into the aspect of Venerable Vajrayogini. So what I think I'm accepting is that there's a time gap between this amazing quick quantum technology we do in 1.5 hours in our mind and what actually happens in the physical ordinary world, where to purify all migrating being might take God knows how long now, thousands of years, but that's not so important because I think, you know, well, I don't know if this is entirely, I think this is probably true, like, well, no, I know that, you know, Buddhas of all three times, right, past, future, present, and beyond the ordinary sphere, time probably doesn't even exist. So whether it be like flash of a second or 10 eons or 20 eons, it's probably in some way like the same. But I'm not like a quantum physics person, so I don't really know. I don't want to just be making stuff up. But it seems like in some way that could happen. So what I think is going on is like in the space of the mind, I should just think that if I have the intention that you know, I'm self-generating as a Venerable Vajrayogini, and I'm purifying all worlds, and I do it in the temple, sitting down doing it, and then I go into the world, and if I find that people aren't in the aspect of Venerable Vajrayogini yet, I don't get disappointed, but I think that actually it's just taking its due time to get there, and in the physical world it just takes longer, and I should be happy that you know, if that things have their own way of reconciling. So when I see things that just seem obviously non-virtuous or nonsensical, that I think well, karma has its own way of reconciling and not get really disappointed. Because it seems there's, you understand what I'm saying, right? Like it seems, okay, not really. I'm
No.
not explaining this properly.
Well,
It
you're
just-
you're explaining things.
So what I'm trying to say is, I should continue to have faith. I should always have faith that every single virtuous action that I do and every single generation completion stage thing I do is depositing a credit into this like virtue pool or something, that someday there's enough of collective merit to actually move the physical world to that direction, like more quickly. And
just 1 second. There is no physical world external to your mind. There is no world out there external to your awareness of it.
Right.
There is no world out there external to your awareness.
Right, but
So if you want to change the physical world, change your mind, because
Okay.
your mind and the physical world are not two things.
okay.
So if you want to make changes, understand your mind and understand how we do create those changes, but it's not changes to a world that's out there existing externally.